Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombe Radio Hour on Saga 960. I want to introduce you to a fascinating guy. Damien Spaulding is his name. He's from north of Toronto, Barrie, I think, and he's got some really interesting, intriguing ideas about development that he wants to build in the Barrie area and connecting it in to Toronto. And I thought it would be interesting to check in with him. Damien Spaulding, welcome to the show, sir.
Glad to be here, Brian. Pleasure being here.
So, Damien, tell me about what your proposal is. We'll come back and talk a little about you and your background in a bit. But, just off the top, what's this exciting proposal that you're thinking about?
Well, off the top, I've been working a number of years with some high-level producers in California, Walt Disney, Universal, that kind of thing. And we wanted to build a Walt Disney North or a Hollywood North up here, Universal Studios North. Yes? You can't hear me? Louder? Okay, so Universal Studios North of here. So in essence, what the picture is that we're, how can I put this? To imagine taking Universal Studios, their parking lot, and putting it up here just north of Toronto, Ontario, taking the Imagineers and the Walt Disney process and all the princesses and that kind of concept and rebuilding it new as a massive Canadian initiative. Instead of Canada exporting talent, we will actually bring the talent here to bring gravity. So from that and from building a series of movies and pulling that all together, we're now adding gravity to Canada. And so much so that to handle the bandwidth of our movies and our productions, all the things we're doing, we can't even fit it in Toronto. So we're building something new. And thus now building a new performance and rehearsal complexes, a new theme park north of Toronto, a new high-speed rail that connects Barrie and Collingwood. It's a project, when you tally it all up, it's about $14 billion, and you put it all together. It's going to be dispersed over a period of time that really will bump up the economic status of our region, as well as the impact internationally when it comes to media.
There's a couple of studios in the Toronto, Portlands, and I think they're not full. So how do you think you're going to get the demand for, that much movie production space?
Absolutely.
An hour north of Toronto.
Yes, the truth is that I know we can work with Toronto. Some of the productions that we have coming up will definitely be in those spaces because we do not have our facility built as of yet. But when you're building 10 to 50, 100 different movies, television productions and whatnot per year, it's no longer a one-off that we're doing an Iron Man 12 and we need to shoot that at a location. There are 9 movies now already with full pitch decks ready to go in different forms of funding. And that's before some of these movies turn into television shows. That's before we do a lot of the recording studios and even Canadian Invasion. The Canadian Invasion is a television show. This all began when I was chatting with a friend and colleague, Andrew Lane. Andrew Lane is a producer of High School Musical, Hannah Montana, Princess Diaries, that kind of thing. And with that, I said, Drew, we call those of us that know, we call him Drew. And I said, Drew, what the world needs right now is like a Canadian invasion, like the British invasion back in the 70s, or a new Jackson 5, like a Fab 5. And so as soon as I said that, he's like, that'll be phenomenal. And so he started the journey of creating the first Canadian invasion, which has then turned into a massive, will soon be a reality television show, but it's not doctored, it's real, more like a docu-series. And so we're going to be reaching out to all of Canada and getting all the top talents tween age and come in and actually stay for a month or 3. It's a blend between Survivor and geez, what's the other franchises? Survivor, a little bit of America's Top Model, that kind of thing. Point is, with that, we're going to be bringing the top producers, the top engineers, the top everyone from across the world, as well as bringing the top from Toronto. And we need to do that on an ongoing basis. The Canadian invasion might become a Spanish invasion and so on and so forth over time, and that'll be centralized here. So there's new infrastructure that needs to be built. And at the same time, the scale that what we're doing goes beyond running a one-off production again. We're creating a legit Hollywood North. We're going to be cycling a large capacity of new projects through up here.
So the film industry that's in Toronto really is reliant on a bunch of tax incentives and other grants that come from either Ontario or Toronto or the Canadian film business, et cetera. What conversations have you had with governments? What kind of support do you think you can get?
Okay. The typical process, the government will fund as you get funded. So there are one of my colleagues out west, she actually specializes in that end of things. So both Alberta, she's in Alberta, we're here in Ontario. This is a Canadian initiative. The main gravity is in Ontario. So she's already in communication with government entities for funding for projects that way. And then I've been working directly with major funders that in California as well, Los Angeles and abroad, some actually out west, out east as well, that funds different productions. So we have venture capital and interest that way, and pairing that, doubling that with the local Canadian governmental funds as well is where we get that massive gravity for the projects that we're doing this.
Awesome. And whereabouts do you think it's going to be located? Do you have the land already identified and bought?
We have a number of locations. I don't want to necessarily get into that too deeply here, but it's in the Barrie and surrounding area. So because there's no room, Canada's Wonderland's out of room, for example, so we need to build outside of Canada's Wonderland. Barrie is already fairly built up, so they're surrounding the area, north, south, east, west. There's a fair amount of real estate. The journey that we're on is very much indicative of what Walt Disney did in the early 1900s, where he had Orange County. He purchased a whole bunch of inexpensive land and he put in studios. He built a guy with ears, a mouse with ears, and got gravity. And from that gravity, interest grew, and it just doubled and doubled and doubled until the media became a theme park. Because we have an entertainment park, Canada's one is a wonderful entertainment park, and then we have other parties coming in to try to make it a theme park, but they're not building media. So the big win of what we're doing is now we're tying media. We have some phenomenal movies coming up that are just begging for theme attractions. And so we pair the media exposures with the theme park and then make that happen. That'll be surrounding the Barrie area. And the high-speed rail would then be allowing day talent to travel between the two readily, and also allow us to fulfill all the needs that we have for the community without and bringing up the best from Toronto.
So why Barrie?
Barrie, because it is like an Orange County of Canada. It is an inexpensive place to be. The real estate is far less expensive. I've been in Barrie or worked in Barrie for many decades, so my roots run deep there. The mayor of Barrie, years ago when I was putting together, I was buying a high school and then turning that into kindergarten and grade 12 school of the arts, because that's a little bit of my history. The reach of the community, the support of the community was absolutely phenomenal. And at that time, Alex Nuttall, the mayor of Barrie, he was an MP. And so he was facilitating the process at the federal level. And it's just the support that I've received in the Barrie and surrounding area in central Ontario is phenomenal. And the number of talented individuals and individuals that have to go down to Toronto all the time, there's no need to do that if we had the facility up where we are in Barrie, Ontario. So it's kind of the natural growth, much like you had the downtown GTA that then grew north of 401. This seems like Barrie is now becoming the north of Toronto and then growing. It's always been known as a gateway to the north, but it's never been a destination. So like a destination like the Muskokas, or like Collingwood. I happen to live in Collingwood. You tend to go drive through Barrie. But the convenience of the highway being right there, all the infrastructure required to do what we need to do is right there. And it's just a short throw from Toronto. Already millions of commutes are done on a weekly basis back and forth, Barrie and Toronto. And so it's just a natural way of doing things, keeping the cost down and just working with the natural gravity and growth of the region.
Now you've got a GO train that does go from Toronto to Barrie. Why the high-speed rail is necessary?
When it takes so much time to turn around, a lot of people begrudgingly take the GO train, not to discount its power and convenience and what it brings to the community. Having the train is better than not having the train. But there's something to be said about taking the new underground extension of the subway in Toronto and hopping on a bullet train and getting up to Barrie in 10, 15 minutes instead of 45 to an hour, right? So it just makes the convenience so much higher. There's the traffic, as those that drive the 400 and 401s during the rush hour times notice all about. And I know to abate that, to really knock that down, and also, of course, reduce, it takes over an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, I'm told. I have not done it myself, to go from Barrie clean through to Toronto and then again at the end of the day. So it takes an 8 or 10 hour day to be exorbitantly long. Whereas running a bullet train right between the two just makes sense. And so your commute time goes down. You can easily get the talent into our production studios and supporting our theme park and everything that we're doing. It just makes sense.
And do you have the space for a bullet train?
So right now it is a concept that we're looking at different options. The concept at this point is to run it right beside the 400 because it's a pretty straight right now. And so if we can run it on the left or right side, just straight up and down, call it a day. Discussions are beginning with the international bullet train individuals, and because they're not built in Canada, obviously here we'd have to bring one in. Other discussions actually in the Quebec side has begun as well. We're looking at possible maglev technology. We're just describing the project now and getting many different interested parties from around the world, and then we're going to really do the fine grain details soon enough, all the engineering studies and traffic studies and so on and so forth. But there's room on both sides of the 400 because it's just the way it's designed to be able to run something like that. Conceptually, need to work it.
And sorry, you said you wanted to continue it to Collingwood. What's the Collingwood connection?
So I live in Collingwood. I do not believe continuing it to Collingwood is in the cards. The density is not there. It's not. We can go as far as Barrie. That's a plan for now. And we can see the high-speed rail being much like the rail of old in the 1800s. Once the rail comes through, all of a sudden, economy bursts, right? The population grows, things happen. And then from that, you grow out even further. But the first plan is simply to get it as far as Barrie. And then that's going to be a big proof of concept. I know the government of Canada is looking, and different groups are looking at doing other rail lines across Canada high speed as well. But this will be the least, in my opinion, in my understanding, the smallest barrier to entry to get into that market, running that north-south quickly between Barrie and Toronto.
Sounds like a very exciting, ambitious plan. What's the probability this all happens, do you think?
Right now it's looking very likely. There has been next to no blockages on any of the projects I've been doing. Now, the high-speed rail was a supporting project for the movie, the production facilities, the theme park, and everything else. So those have been in development for the last 6-8 years as they've been growing. This high-speed rail is just starting up. Our communication is just starting in this past year, so it's just beginning. I have not found any opposition as of yet. I've not even the financial support, and there's great interest in investing into the process so far. So it's been really, really positive, but I do not know what I do not know. So it's a matter of walking down this path a little bit longer now and seeing really what the viability and feasibility is between the two communities. I know there is great excitement from the Barrie side of things, and in my conversation with Mr. Nuttall, it's been stunning, and the support we have in Central Ontario is fantastic. Looking to mirror that support in Toronto, Ontario, and then with those two handshakes, there's really nothing stands in between. It's then just a matter of surveying and planning and then implementation.
Well, it's kind of exciting and wonderful that someone like you is dreaming up these economic development opportunities, transportation opportunities, entertainment and arts opportunities, which I think creates the soul of a country. So it's all kind of symbiotic in the way that it connects together.
Yes.
I've got some background in this and some questions for you. Maybe we'll take a break for some messages and come back with Damien, and I'll ask him a little bit more about this interesting project to build really a amusement park like Universal Studio Tours in Barrie or around Barrie, and importantly, use it as a catalyst, a nexus for movie development, and then also connect it up with a better rail connection to the city of Toronto. Stay with us, everyone. Back in just two with Damien Spaulding. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I'm chatting tonight with a gentleman from Barrie and Collingwood. Damien Spaulding is his name. He's come highly recommended to me as a big thinker, as a ambitious young man, and someone who really wants to do something to develop Ontario and Canada. And what he wants to do is he wants to bring more movie production, more film production to Canada, to specifically the Barrie area, and combine it with an amusement park kind of experience like Universal Studio Tours, and then connect it up by rail to Toronto. And I think that it's a pretty ambitious plan and a kind of an interesting one. Damien, you probably don't know this, but my first job after I graduated from my business school education was with the Walt Disney Company in Los Angeles. And
no kidding.
no, I kid you not. And I was involved in master planned development for Walt Disney World, Euro Disney, and potentially Southern California. And so I know a little bit about what you're talking about. And you're right. Disney started out in Orange County in Anaheim. Actually, it wasn't Orange County; it was Anaheim. And really created the Magic Kingdom, and it was really quite a spectacular development. But he had the movies already, and he started with the cartoons and the movies, and so he had the creative content for a while before he ever thought about putting it into the amusement park.
Correct.
And so the amusement park was a way of exploiting the brand equity that he'd already developed in the movies and the cartoons and Mickey Mouse. And when you think about some of the rides that he had in that first Magic Kingdom, he already had animated features on almost each one of them, so that people knew what the character was about, what the story should be about when they came to the Magic Kingdom and thought about going to, It's a Small World or Dumbo or the Cinderella's Castle, etc.
Yes.
And so I think you got to do the creative
you are dead on. You are dead on. And that's why I say we're mimicking that. So right now we have 8, 10 movies that we're starting. You cannot have a theme park if you do not have a theme. So the first thing is to create the theme. And we have, therefore, some action films that resembles Back to the Future, which is just begging to be a theme park ride. We have some films coming up, Manila to the Villas, really fun, international kind of flow. I can't get too much in the details of these before they're in production, but that asks for that international kind of flow boat ride, that kind of thing, in our theme park. Let alone the fact that the theme park, outside of the themes that we're developing with the media productions that we're building, Canada is just cool. We have so many cool festivals, from syrup festivals to winter carnivals to summer shows, things like that, to actually take what all we Canadians love and enjoy, and Calgary, the Stampedes, things like that, and mimic that also in our theme parks. As international travelers and tourists that love not only the productions we've made, want to experience a theme park, to actually experience a taste of Canada. So we take, during the Maple Syrup Festival, we're going to add some octane to that and be not only become a self-contained entity in ourselves, but also knit with the rest of the community and pull that all together. Because I'm very big in pulling us as a community together and crossing bridges and mending things as we go too. So that's all part and parcel of it. But yes, I completely agree with you. First things first, we're building a couple sound stages, if not more, depending upon how fast, how many directors, line directors, and we're looking right now at line producers, sorry. We're looking at getting as much new talent as possible. So if you're a camera person, an actor, whatever in the industry, DP, you name it, I'd love to hear from you as well as we build up the gravity of what we're doing so we can go at scale very quickly as soon as our first VC funds are received. And they're coming seemingly very soon around the corner to then build our first movies. So the theme park is a year 2, year 3 initiative. Year 1 is, but it'll take us a year or 2 just to get the land details together, right? And the engineering, and the surveying, and the whole 9 yards, the environmental impact statements, and the whole work. So while we're building the media and building the gravity with the media, we're now pre-thinking the theme park, and of course, when you're building as a business individual, you don't think 3 years ahead or 5 years ahead. You think 30 years, 50 years, 100 years ahead. So recognizing what our long-term plan is, our trajectory, we also then have to now look at the larger impacts. And that's why now we're talking very, very early in the game about the high-speed rail. Let's get these conversations going because it doesn't happen overnight. And from here now, the 3 should fit lock and key together as we move. Yes, I completely agree with you, Brad.
Yeah, I think that staging it out, having that long-term vision is critical. But let's come back to the Disney comparable for a second, if we could.
Yes.
So, creating the content, getting the brand equity first, getting the material such that you've got those different attractions. When you think about Universal Studio Tours, it followed Disney, and it had, I don't know, 50 years, maybe even 75 years of film development. So when it launched, it had a lot of content that it could launch with. And so I think that is key, is that you've got to develop that content first. Another interesting sort of case study is that Disney, and I worked for Disney, and we were constrained in Anaheim with the amount of land that we had available for the Magic Kingdom, and Disney
Yeah.
wanted to expand, and there was no land surrounding it available at a reasonable price to expand, and obviously what Walt decided and dreamt of was a destination theme park rather than a regional theme park,
Yes.
and went to
Florida.
Orlando and
Yes.
bought, I think it was 47,000 acres of swampland,
Yes.
and had more than enough land to expand. I think that the Magic Kingdom is a couple hundred acres in Anaheim, California,
Right.
as an example. And so therefore, making sure that you've got enough land that you can expand on in the future is
Correct.
key. What are you going to do to get that kind of land, even in the Barrie area?
There are plans in play, and I will bite my tongue. But there are plans, yes, to acquire a substantial amount of property. And there's a few locations that we're looking at. And because it's early in the game, I can't, I'm not comfortable digging too deep in that. But yes, we are looking at a substantial amount of space that we're then going to grow, and keeps a lot of that space naturalized, because Canada is not only about high tech and high fun, but also about, skiing and hiking and hunting and fishing. And so to keep a lot of it naturalized will also, that's natural tourism, as well as the theme-based high tech. But there are plans in play, and I can't dig too deep in that
Okay.
anymore.
Okay. So let me give you another analogy. I worked on Euro Disney, and excuse me, Euro Disney has got a couple of different comparables that might be worth considering when you're thinking about your option. So when Disney was thinking about going to Euro Disney, they actually had another offer to go to the Costa Brava in Spain. And if you know anything about the Spain and the Costa Brava, it's sort of more like Florida. It's beaches, it's wilderness, it's great weather almost all year round, versus Paris, which is more like Toronto or Barrie, where you got a big city, but the weather's not all that great.
With you.
And it's interesting because after the fact, and the decision was made to go to Paris because something like 70% of all the people that travel in Europe on an annual basis pass through Paris. Paris is one of those major hubs where people go through Charles de Gaulle from an airplane standpoint or from a train standpoint. It's a nexus of a lot of transportation, and so therefore they thought being close to that nexus of a lot of transportation would make a lot of sense.
Yes.
After the fact, they came to the conclusion that there were two big negatives. One is that the weather was such that, attendance went down fairly dramatically in the off season. It just does when it's raining and when it's cold. It doesn't have, snow, but it does get rainy and cold. And think about Canada's Wonderland that closes for, more than half of the year.
Yeah, I know. Yes. Yes.
And then the second is that they couldn't make it the destination that Walt Disney World is. It was more like Disneyland, which is a regional theme park rather than a destination theme park. And I'll give you an interesting case study of the benefit of that. Any idea how many people go to Disneyland versus Walt Disney World on an annual basis?
That is a study that now my partner Andrew Lane is on top of. He's the one that has studied that model for the last 30 years of his life professionally. I do not have on the top.
So
of
it's somewhere between 13 and 14 million people.
Yes.
And
yes.
Surprise, surprise, it's about the same number of people. It's about 1.2 million different between California and Florida. But the difference is in California, they stay for a day to two.
Yes.
In Walt Disney World, they stay 4 or 5 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the difference in the number of people that come, but it's how long they stay.
Yes. Yes.
And in California, 20% or so stay in a Disney-owned hotel.
Yes.
In Florida, 50% stay in a Disney-owned hotel. And
Yeah.
you go through food and beverage, merchandise, all that other stuff, it's dramatically more, which says that a destination theme park is 10 times as valuable as a regional theme park,
Yes.
even if you got the same number approximately of people that come to start with.
Yes.
And so therefore, being close to Paris was actually a negative, not nearly as attractive as if you had gone to Costa de Brava because of the weather issues and because, if I'm in Paris, I'm going to go check out Euro Disney versus I'm going to Florida to go to Disney.
Yes. Yes.
So is Barrie a destination Or is it, while I'm Toronto, I'll check out this new park in Barrie?
We're building Barrie as a destination. We're building the theme park as a year-round theme park that is not completely open air. A lot of it will be domed or canopied. Therefore, and just in the same way, the big production studios and theme parks in the United States are covered. In the roller coasters down in south, they're air conditioned because in the blazing sun in the summertime, everyone would just be killing themselves. We're just inverted here, where in the winter time it's kind of nippy. So therefore, yes, we're going to be covering a lot of the theme park, and if we do not have to have the staffing concerns of having to hire 100 Mickey Mouses every single year because he's shut down every winter, it's going to be ongoing. And with that, the center point, we have different plans for the theme park. One conceptual plan is to put even a hotel dead center in the middle of it and have all the attractions and spider out there. So as you go out further and further from the center, you get into the naturalized experiences. And as you get into the center of the density, that's where your dining and your rides and all those adventure rides as well as coaster rides are all done. And having the history making rides as well. It's not going to be a small park. There will definitely be attractions, whether it be the highest coaster, the fastest coaster, the coaster that goes through the ground for 500, whatever it is. So all of that will be there. And so the journey is to, yes, come to Toronto, land at Pearson, get on the subway, boot yourself up high speed, clean up to the theme park, and stay for a week and enjoy everything. And you're going to want to come here year round, because you're going to want the winter experience is going to be completely different than the summer experience. It's going to be completely different than the fall experience. Yes, the rides will stay, the big structures will stay the same, but the actual metaphor of the entire theme park will adapt through the year. It's exciting. It's exciting. So yes, it definitely also, because of its close proximity to Toronto, it definitely has that quick in and out tourist edge to it, and especially putting the high-speed rail in, there's going to be a natural local capacity to it. But again, with the theme, you attract it. I love Back to the Future. Keep going to that as a movie, also because we have a movie that echoes that same kind of success and model, as well as Night at the Museum, and to know that there is a Night at the Museum event that I can participate at, or Back to the Future, I'm going to want to see it, I want to be a part of it. So, and I will travel to do that. And one of my colleagues here, he's going to Disney for the third time, I think, this year. Each time he spends tens of thousands to go, because he's got a daughter that just loves, hugging the princesses at the same time as his family just loves taking the rides. So you have that natural attraction that we go down to Florida all the time as Canadians for that kind of attraction. Let's bring Florida up here.
Excuse me. Let's ask you one more question. It's interesting. So the RER in Paris goes right to the front door of Euro Disney. And Disney, when they were building Euro Disney, thought that was a brilliant idea because, people could get to Euro Disney very quickly from right downtown Paris. And it probably was a good idea, just like your high-speed rail is a good idea. After the fact, they found that the problem was it was too convenient to stay on the Champs-Élysées in a fancy hotel in downtown Paris, and in the morning take the RER to Euro Disney. And so it turns out that actually having that fast rail between the Champs-Élysées and Euro Disney is a negative to value, because less people stay at Euro Disney. And in fact, if you can go from downtown Paris to Fontainebleau or to Versailles or to Euro Disney, what they found is that people came to Euro Disney for a day for the rides, but Cinderella's castle, which is a beautiful castle, is nothing compared to Fontainebleau or Versailles. And so if you wanted to see a real castle, you went to see a real castle. And so it's interesting when you think about it, the ease of transportation by way of high-speed rail between downtown Paris and Euro Disney was actually a negative to value, because it made it too convenient to come back and forth, when what you really wanted to do is to have people come and stay. And so when you think about Disneyland still does not have any kind of rail transit from Los Angeles to Disneyland. Orlando, there's no rail transit to Walt Disney World. What they want is they want people to come and stay. So is high-speed rail a positive or a negative?
High-speed rail is a positive for our production capabilities. Once again, it started as a solution for day talent and getting the tradespeople up onto our production facilities, and it's definitely a convenience for the theme park. The high-speed rail may not dump directly at the theme park. The high-speed rail may terminate on the outside. You know, you still have to get on another shuttle to make it to the theme park. We'll figure out the balance of interest that way. But also what the high-speed rail allows is if allows more the budget conscious tourists as well, because staying at Walt Disney in Florida, as a global populace can do, very few can afford. So with that, to make it convenient, so we can have for lack of a better term, a more elitist kind of experience if you want to stay in the hotel in the center of the park. And then you have the supporting Barrie and surrounding area in Toronto for the day people that want to come up and also take it in as a budget conscious experience. But once you stay at a theme driven hotel, that itself will be an attraction. We're just we're at the planning stages of all this, and honestly, your input is very valuable to me. I love it, and I'm going to take your comments to the team here, and we're going to add that to the storyboard and the process of exactly what we're doing. Because right now we're putting all the right pieces in place, and then we're going to be running that implementation. Again, we are just at the movie building stage, a television building stage, a content stage of it, and then we have a number of years, or at least a year now, to plan out what the bigger picture looks like, and the high speed will be another. But the journey, we desire the high speed mainly for the production ease. We want that production ease going north-south between Barrie and Collingwood. As for its integration with the theme park, we will determine its final details soon enough.
This is a fascinating idea. I really want to chat a little bit further about it. We're going to take a break for some messages. We'll be back in 2 minutes with Damien Spaulding. Stay with us, everybody. Back in 2. I'm chatting tonight, everyone. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour with Damien Spaulding. He's a young entrepreneur who's got just a visionary, wonderful idea for building a sound stage, a film production studio in the Barrie area, maybe then converting it to a theme park and connecting it potentially via high-speed rail to Toronto. Damien, let's continue this conversation because I think it's kind of interesting, and you've got great answers to each one of my questions, so that's fantastic. I do think that the rail connection makes a ton of sense. And you said you're in Collingwood. You probably know that there is actually a rail corridor that goes all the way from Barrie to Collingwood, and it was rail at one point in time. Most of it's been pulled up to be made into a walking trail, which I think, is good for people that are hiking, but it's very difficult to get rail back on a rail corridor that has been pulled up because a lot of the neighbors will object. But I do believe that if you had rail all the way to Collingwood, would dramatically improve. And 2 other rail lines go into the area. There's a rail line that goes from Mississauga up through Brampton to Orangeville, and then continues from Orangeville up. I don't think it goes to Collingwood. I think it goes on to Owen Sound, but it gets close to that area. And then there's another rail line that comes from right downtown Toronto up by the airport to Bolton. And so there's 3 rail lines that sort of go into the area. And I do think that rail connection makes a ton of sense. I think that if you could figure out a way of getting number 1 rail to Collingwood, that would be brilliant. And then number 2, I'm not sure about the high-speed rail, but I do think that an express service between Barrie and Toronto would make a lot of sense. And it's interesting, if you take a look at what happens in Long Island Railway. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Long Island Railway, but the Long Island Railway has 6 lines that go from Penn Station out, branching out across Long Island. But the ones that are the most popular are the express that go all the way out to Southampton, Montauk, etc. And it would take way too long if you went through the Milk Run and then tried to go all the way out to the end of the island. And so those express lines really work. And we don't have a lot of examples in the Toronto area of express versus local because we just haven't built enough track. The one that I'm familiar with is the express that goes from Clarkson in Mississauga to downtown. And I can take the express and be jam-packed, and 5 minutes later is the local, which is almost empty. And the difference in timing is like 5-7 minutes. But people are willing to do almost anything to cram in and stand up the whole way to save 5 or 7 minutes. So if you can lobby as a first step for an
Mm,
express to
mm,
Barrie,
mm.
I think you'll be well off, because that effectively justifies the idea longer term of investing in a high speed rail. Get the express first and get it working first. And then I think that you're right. Extending the track to Collingwood makes sense. The other thing that happens in England, in Long Island, lots of different places, is the train services branch out. And the benefit of the branching out is you're giving the main city, Barrie, twice the capacity that you would give to the cities that they then branch out to. My mom, when she was a kid, took the train from Toronto to Gravenhurst every summer, because that's how you got to Gravenhurst. That same line that goes to Barrie continues to either Collingwood or to Gravenhurst. You could have one train going Barrie, Collingwood, another train going Barrie, Gravenhurst. Then I think you've really got a potential spectacular development of the Muskoka Collingwood area, with Barrie as the nexus.
Yes, yes, yes. It's just paralleling what the 400 does, right? Barrie is a gateway to the north, and then from there, if you love hugging trees and then shooting bears with your cameras and whatnot, you go east to Algonquin Park. If you love getting in your motorboat, you go pure north to the Muskokas. If you're an urban hippie that loves trail walking, or you want beaches and sunsets, and you go northwest to the beaches, longest freshwater beach in the world. If you like skiing and you want to go trail hiking, go up to Collingwood. And Barrie has always been that gateway to the north. And to echo that success with rail is especially with where things are going demographically, and the government plans and the city planning and densities and public transit infrastructure spends you're looking at doing. It just makes sense. It makes sense. It makes a great deal of sense.
So give that some consideration. Lobbying for and trying to get, number one, express to Barrie.
Yeah, yeah.
Route. And number two, trying to get the extension to, I think Collingwood makes the most sense. And potentially Gravenhurst or other routes if possible, maybe even I don't think there's rail. Actually, there is rail that comes close to Rama, but it's on the other line that comes up on the east side of. Let me give you another topic that's interesting to think about. When I was at Disney, we gave a lot of thought to Chautauqua. Are you familiar with Chautauqua at all?
No, go ahead.
Do a little bit of study of Chautauqua. Chautauqua is a village slash cultural phenomena in northwestern New York State. And it is a place where, back 50, 70 years ago, the people from New York and Boston and New Jersey, et cetera, would go for a summer of culture. The New York Philharmonica performs there every year. And they had educational classes, reading classes, meditation classes, everything else. It was a place where one went for a summer of culture, education, arts, et cetera. And what they found is that all of the creative people that were the suppliers of that went for the summer, stayed around the area, interacted with each other, and created an ecosystem of cultural development that was spectacular. So much so that Chautauqua is part of the lore of the development of culture and arts in the United States. And the closest comparable to that is Stratford in Canada.
Yes, that's right.
Where people that are the directors, the cast, the artisans, the wardrobe people, the everything associated with Stratford and the Stratford Festival, come to Stratford and stay for the season. They may not live there full time, though a lot of them actually have ended up moving there full time, but come and stay. And stay over time. Disney wanted to create a Chautauqua in Orlando. They weren't successful in it from a creative standpoint, but they were from an amusement standpoint, where the Orlando area is now the center headquarters for a lot of other amusement companies and people that develop, roller coasters and other things. So it became a ecosystem, a cluster, an economic development nexus for people in that area. So again, don't think of Barrie and what you're trying to do as being an adjunct to Toronto with the high-speed rail. Think about trying to create something that is a presence, a sense of place, a cluster of creative people unto itself. And I think you could develop that, Collingwood, Barrie, comparable to maybe not all year long, but certainly for the season, comparable to Stratford or Chautauqua.
Yes.
Just another thought.
Absolutely. You're now getting to my old established pedigree. You'll see over my shoulders if you're on socials, you'll see a few awards. I've been winning the Consumer's Choice Awards for the last decade or so, since they came to Barrie. And I've been running a top leading arts education school, a music education school. The reason why I'm moving at the levels which I'm moving with Hollywood and the world is a result of training world-class talent and getting their attention. And so there already is a gravity here. And it started as a Spaulding School of Music, which then became a Spaulding School of Dance and Drama and Design and Production. And so education is a massive component of what we're doing. So, and at the same time, we're on a day school program, the Spaulding Day School. So you can start in kindergarten, learn in an alternative form that actually wraps the education model around your child's brain rather than your child trying to cram themselves around an antiquated education model. And then bring that right up to post-secondary school and run a multi-million-dollar movie shoot. And really run a full life cycle through your entire life here. And then with that, there's a team of 35 right now, that is the thinking brain. That's the Swiss watch of the Spaulding Canada enterprise and all the things we're doing. And this think tank now, it's some of the top creatives, oh my gosh, I love my team. It's phenomenal. And we're growing our team strategically on a daily basis to take that exactly what you're describing, Ryan. The whole journey that we're at right now is a fulfillment of that journey over the last 15 years. That I've been building here. So yes, most definitely. Bring all the artists together. So for example, someone wants to run a movie, wants to run a show, right? So what do you need? So you need an auditorium. So we'll build an auditorium, we'll rent an auditorium, that's fine. Okay, you want to cater it. So you go to Spaulding School of Cuisine to get your catering in place. Okay, you need to market. So you got to go to Spaulding School of Production to learn how to market or design, to do your graphic design, your web design, and all the design and marketing design. And then from there, you need your audio and your video, your lights and your camera. So you can go to School of Production, grab some students from School of Production, and you need a set behind you. So you're going to go to the School of Fine Arts and grab some artists and bring a massive set piece and go back to the School of Design to design your set elements, and everything strengthens one another. And just because a person can be creative in music doesn't mean they can't be creative in drama. Will Smith is a good example. So you have a standardized form of education, standardized form of intercommunication between all disciplines. And then you build this massive gravity that synchronizes it all and then also generates a plethora of great content that the world will then grab onto and then come to be a part of, not only culturally, but also from a tourist experience. My gosh, it's a win-win-win all across. And it's been years. You keep calling me a young guy, a young man. How young do you think I am? I don't have a bald head. I mean, it takes the years off a little bit. But I've been around long enough to now be it's been 25 years in the making, the multifacets to get to the stage now where we have this critical mass and we're bringing that to international attention. Yes.
It's an interesting, intriguing idea. Let me give you one other idea just for you to consider.
Yeah.
A lot of developments end up being developed near other attractions where there isn't a long enough length of stay. Let me give you a couple of examples if I could. Do you know what the length of stay is at the Grand Canyon?
Hit me.
45 minutes.
2 hours. You say again?
45 minutes.
40, that's what I thought you'd say.
Yeah. So people travel from all around.
Yes.
And then they go to the Grand Canyon and they look and they walk around, they look again, and they walk around, they look again, and then they get bored.
Yeah.
And they go to the IMAX theater, they go to the gift shop. Some will stay longer, but not enough to change the average and take a rafting trip or a zip line or something like that. But once you've got a whole bunch of people going to something and the length of stay isn't long enough,
yes,
they need and want something else to do.
Yes.
And there's lots of examples of that. I'll give you one other example. Do you know what the length of stay is at Niagara Falls?
No, go ahead.
It's about the same, 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many people go to Niagara Falls on an annual basis? It's about the same number of people that go to Disneyland. About 13 million people. So the same number of people go to Disneyland, about 2 million more go to Walt Disney World, as go to Niagara Falls. But the difference is at Disneyland, they get them to stay and spend money for a day and a half, and 20% of them to stay in a Disney-owned hotel. At Walt Disney World, they get them to stay to 4 to 5 days, and 50% of them stay at a Disneyland-owned hotel. In Niagara Falls, what do they do after the 45 minutes? Some of them go to Clifton Hill.
Yes,
Some of them go shopping. Some of them used to go to Marineland when it was there.
yes, yes,
But most of them just go home.
yes, yes,
Why don't you try to locate close to a place where people are already going but don't have enough to do?
yes. And that is, we're getting close to location again, but that is and I'm holding that close to my chest. But for obvious reasons, we're watching the real estate acquisition process carefully. But that's exactly the plan. That we are roughly, let's say, center of Central Ontario. So you are very quickly accessing all the major attractions in the region while still being able to stay where you are. So you can spider out not only in the facility and theme park itself, but within a very short drive, reach all the amazing tourism. Even the boating up in Midland is phenomenal. Just all that major tourism in a very, very short throw. Yes, you're nail on the head. That is the plan.
So just as a however, because I think your idea is imaginative, it's creative, it's brilliant. If I was working with you, I'd say let's go look in the Niagara Falls area. Let's see if we can find 1,000 acres of land somewhere close to Niagara Falls. And let's see if we can lobby for high-speed rail or an express GO train station, GO train track, GO train service from Toronto, and take all of your idea and give the thing that 13 million people want to do after they've spent 45 minutes taking a look at Niagara Falls, and they've got a rest of the day. And then, we'll give them that wonderful experience. Plus, we'll start building some hotels because you don't have any room for more hotels right close to Niagara Falls. And with your sound stages, with your film stages and film studios and your amusement, you don't need to be right close to Niagara Falls, but you could be within 20 minutes of Niagara Falls and capture all those people. If you were in St. Catharines or the Niagara Falls area. Just as a however, I think Collingwood is not quite the same, but it's similar because I think people that go to Collingwood go for a day of skiing or 2 days of skiing. They don't go for 45 minutes, but I think in the same way, Wasaga Beach might be similar where people want to go to the beach and then they get bored and want to do something else. So think about whether you can locate somewhere else where people are going already. And use the Disney example of Euro Disney, the millions of people that go through Paris, and all we got to do is persuade them to come a little bit farther to go to Euro Disney. Just as a however, I think one other thing that one should think about, and that is, I do think that we've got an incredible music and film business in Canada. And the fact that, so many stars in Hollywood are Canadian heritage and background. Doing something that takes some of our Canadian success and accentuates it, I think would be a key to success. Because I think people are proud of Canada. They have a love for Canada. We have a national identity that is challenged at times. But if you had a place where you could go watch Celine Dion perform and or a film of Celine Dion, you can go see Ryan Gosling do to Kenergy, thinking about drawing some of the existing creative talent that's been incredibly successful south of the border and internationally and giving it a home in Canada somewhere, I think would be pretty spectacular.
Absolutely. There's two plans. One for what I call a mega complex temporarily. I don't know what we're going to call it in the future, but it's an arts and cultural center that has multiple recording studios, post-production areas. You get sound stages. You have the performance hall. There's I don't know if you know the Wiley Theater down in Texas. But it's a phenomenal space. So you can have a rake floor system, a thrust stage. The entire fly system is normally over a stage, can actually go over the entire facility, and therefore you can lift a balcony mezzanine in the air. Therefore you can have a flat floor convention center at day, and then of course you can have a beautiful theater at night. And with this multi-use center, multi-use space, and conference centers also associated with it, and tourism having to do with that facility as well, is exactly that center point gravity of all of Canada entertainment. And that's going to be separate from either embedded part of the theme park, or more than likely separate from the theme park as a different statement, and the two will feed one another. And therefore, yes, we have what would be that Las Vegas kind of edge where you get some of the world's talent here in that facility, at the same time as being able to leverage that facility for getting new talent actually exposed and moving up, because everyone needs that point to get broken. We break ourselves in Canada, we get famous in Toronto, but then we got to re-break ourselves in New York or Tennessee or Cali. Let's change that now, where you can come to our facility and break yourself internationally right here in Canada. That's all a part of it, yes. So celebrating what we've already done, where we're going, and creating that catalyst that pulls all the talent, the training together, the education, through to the performance and the entertainment. It's all one shot. Absolutely. Same page.
Damien Spaulding, you are amazing. Great, great idea. A dreamer. We need people like you in Canada. We need people like you worldwide. We need people like you in Ontario. You know, I think that you're going to be a big success. Not sure if it's going to be exactly the way that you're currently thinking about it. And I'd love to chat with you
Sure.
further if you've got any interest. And I'd love to meet you personally sometime, because you know what? I think that what we've lost too often in our day-to-day life, where we gotta, you know, get home, take care of the kids, we got to pay our mortgage, we got to do this thing and that thing, is those people that dream about what could be and what we could deliver. And I think you're the kind of guy that could really build something spectacular and beautiful for whether it's Barrie or Collingwood or Ontario. I don't know, but I look forward to watching your career and what you're going to build, sir.
I appreciate that, sir. But I also got to be clear here too, that yes, I envision things, but it is the team. It is us as a culture. It's us as a community. Of one of the colleagues on our production team right now, he states that a lot of the international productions have their best performances in Toronto, even though they started in New York. And they try to put a finger on, why is the Toronto performance always so good? Why is the cast always so salacious, so yummy? And not just salacious, but in that Torontonians, in Canadians, we work together. It's not the Damien Spaulding show. It is we elevate one another, and as we do so, we build such a great gravity. So as I do what I do, I could not be doing what I'm doing right now without my team with me, without you and your feedback and the feedback of the community. And I must be clear at that. Yes, there needs to be some person that's catalyzing it all. There needs to be some person who can play high-speed chess in their brain and move all the moving parts in synchronicity. Yes, I agree with you. But it's us as a culture, us as a community, and us as a team that makes the real visions come together. And I'm glad to be part of it with you and the larger community that we're doing too. It's not just me.
Damien Spaulding, thanks for being creative, and thanks for inspiring us all to be a little bit creative, because you're a great example. We're going to take a final break, and I'm going to come back with some concluding comments about dreaming, about vision, and about building the soul of our city, our province, etc. Because I think what Damien's talking about often is forgotten, which is that arts and culture really is the soul, and we need to have those places, those institutions that provide that heart of the city. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Damien. Back in 2 minutes.